strong winds to reach Japan tomorrow from the influence of Ewiniar on today's Tropical Weather Bulletin. And now the latest around the wide world of tropics. Tropical Weather Bulletin for May 29th. Tropical Storm Ewiniar is weakening gradually and has just lost typhoon status, although it is still approaching Japan and likely to deliver storm-force winds to several populated areas, including possibly the Tokyo metro. It just passed the Daito Islands, moving northeastwards. Elsewhere, a few other things going on, but first the Atlantic, where it's 3 days until Atlantic hurricane season begins, and this is what it looks like in the tropical zones here. A few thunderstorms blowing up across Texas and northern Mexico, but the rest of the basin is looking awfully quiet, which is obviously good news. In the eastern Pacific, it's day 15 of hurricane season here, and there was one or two little disturbances blowing up, but really very little to talk about, and nothing expected to become a tropical cyclone anytime soon. No chances given across the basin. So the action is in the western Pacific right now, where we've got Ewiniar moving northeast, and out of nowhere up pops a 30% chance of development in the South China Sea, with models really uptrending rapidly on this system. Could become a tropical storm within 24 to 48 hours, according to some models. We'll watch that talk about that a little bit more later. North Indian Ocean looking pretty quiet, a little disturbance in the Arabian Sea and some thunderstorms over Myanmar, but in general the basin is looking quiet after Ramal has died off, which some of its clouds are still noted in the northern part of Bangladesh and eastern India. And we're still giving a 20% chance for another rogue area of interest in the South Indian Ocean. Could it be yet another one near the equator in this late season? Well, it looks like the chances are decreasing a little bit. It doesn't look like it's going to get as strong and maybe not even get the storm status, so that's why we're keeping 20%. Well, here's Ewiniar right now. It's past Daito-jima. It's 148 kilometers to the east-northeast. It's 371 kilometers from the Amami Islands, 595 from Kagoshima, 943 from Ogasawara out east, and 1221 from, of course, Tokyo, the capital of Japan. Moving northeast at a fair speed, about 15 or 16 miles per hour, about 22 kilometers per hour now, and we expect that speed will gradually pick up as it continues towards the southeastern part of Honshu. So here it is on satellite imagery right now, and I think everyone would agree that it's not looking quite as good as it did before. It is fighting against wind shear, I'm pretty sure. It's almost been exposed with its circulation once or twice during this movement, and obviously given the time of year it's still quite early to see storms getting too far north, so it really is on borrowed time before it gets sucked up and becomes an extratropical system, probably within the next 48 hours. We're not sure if it's going to still be tropical by the time it makes its closest pass to Tokyo. I would suggest that it may be at least partially through its post-tropical transition by then, and so we may not see it as a tropical cyclone by that point. As you can see though, it made a close pass to Daito-jima, producing some rainfall there, and probably up to around 50 mile per hour winds, and it's continuing northeastwards now away from that land area, and it's the short hop, 36 to 48 hours until it reaches Tokyo and off into the rest of the western Pacific. Still throwing up large amounts of rainfall there, particularly on the northern side on that precipitation imagery. Now here's the other system, which has just been tagged Invest 94W as well, and already it's looking pretty decent with the circulation becoming more apparent in the South China Sea. Slowly moving northwards is its current movement, and that's going to continue over the next couple of days as it slowly limps towards Hong Kong. Here's the radar from Hong Kong showing that there really is a lot of precipitation growing in the area, especially over Hainan and off to the east of there. That's if this imagery is correct, because I know it's had issues in the past, so I'm not sure about that. But here's the Atlantic right now, east coast of the United States, showing a few clouds, thunderstorms blowing up off the coast, and now into the Caribbean Sea. Not too much going on here, just a weak line of moisture from Central America through Jamaica and Hispaniola. And this is the eastern Atlantic, of course, showing a thunderstorm complex moving off the coast there, and is eventually moving over the Atlantic. Doesn't look like it's going to be much. And this is the Eastern Pacific with a few thunderstorms blowing up just south of eastern Mexico, and they will gradually move eastwards and probably won't last very long. Here's the Western Pacific once again, showing Ewiniar up to the top there. Still a quite compact system, and the much larger system there being that other one, 94W, on the right hand side now as we look at the Bay of Bengal, which is throwing up some thunderstorms over Myanmar. And next we'll be looking at a view of the Arabian Sea as well, with that little system there. There it is. Looks quite interesting, but not much doing with that one. Maybe a different year that might have been a tropical cyclone, but off it goes. Sea surface temperatures right now look pretty decent. Still, of course, very warm in the Eastern Pacific. A few spots there up to 32 degrees Celsius south of Mexico. In the Atlantic, we're creeping up in those temperatures as well. A few spots of 30 degrees plus, particularly off Cuba, the Bahamas and the Florida Keys. Also temperatures increasing down near Central America, but in general the Atlantic is already quite warm and is certainly still on its way up. Western Pacific, those temperatures are increasing, but as you can see right now where Ewiniar is, it's just about to drop below the 26 degree threshold, so really it's going to struggle now. South China Sea very warm until it moves further north near the coast of China. It will cool considerably. Bay of Bengal looking decent with temperatures still up to 30 to 31 degrees Celsius even after the large cyclone Rainfall in the last few days, which certainly would have increased cloud cover and lowered those temperatures somewhat. And this is the southwest Indian Ocean. If that little system decides it's going to form, well, temperatures still looking okay in those low latitudes. Of course, they're off the boil now further south. Of Australia, temperatures along the coast are quite cool now considering, but a few warm spots still, particularly off the Kimberley and northwest of Darwin. And into the South Pacific, where temperatures are gradually decreasing, a very gradual process in this part of the world. New Caledonia now well below the 26 degree isotherm, Vanuatu and Fiji holding on as it will for most of the winter. Compared to average, sea surface temperatures look like this, and it is still very warm compared to average in the Atlantic. That little cool pool in the Sargasso Sea sealing up, and in the Eastern Pacific there's still that narrow corridor. Western Pacific, South China Sea looking good in particular there for Invest 94W, so watch out for that area. And where Ewiniar is, it is quite a bit above average, but still the key statistic is that the temperatures are dropping below 26 degrees even with that boost. Oceanic heat content, this image is a little bit old now, but still not much will have changed in that time. Looking good in the Eastern Pacific for this time of year, it has to be said. A few big spots there of heat energy. Western Pacific tends to look like that normally, but still looking very good there too, up towards the Philippines. The Atlantic really getting a few real hot spots there off Jamaica and south of Puerto Rico and off Cuba. We'll be able to talk about this and compare it with other years in our upcoming forecast on May 31st, our next forecast for the Atlantic hurricane season, as well as other worldwide areas. We'll be live that day as well, by the way, for our countdown to hurricane season. And this is the GFS then for the next 5 days. So you can see Ewiniar moving off to the northeast, and look how quickly it develops Invest 94W in the South China Sea. Becomes a substantial tropical storm and then moves inland over China west of Macau. Watch it again there. It's within 24 hours that it becomes a tropical storm and then moves inland. But it's only the GFS that's really supporting that at the moment, although all the ensembles are on board as well, so that really adds a little bit of weight behind that. Now this is the South Indian Ocean. There's that system that might form, but the GFS has gone a little more shy on that recently. It does briefly become a tropical cyclone. Whether it reaches storm status or not, I'm not sure, but that's a tropical depression for a little while there, moving westwards. Be interesting to see if that gets marked. If it forms, of course, it still might not. 20% given to that system right now. And looking at rainfall expectations with this newfound tropical cyclone potential, it throws up huge amounts of rainfall over mostly the water areas, up towards 48 inches of rain in that area, which is 1,200 millimeters, and very high amounts of rain from monsoonal activity in Myanmar as well on the left hand side. And still a few little areas where Rainfall has been that will get more rain over the next 7 days, up to 16 inches in fact, 400 millimeters, and up to 500 millimeters in Myanmar, and across the coast of China we could get 250 millimeters there in general from this storm, quite a bit further west there too, and quite a bit along the coast of the Philippines as well. Now this is the longer range, day 5 to 10. We're looking out for another tropical cyclone that might try to form in the South China Sea, and you can see the rotation there, and finally something comes into play there 7th and 8th of June, and quite quickly a very elongated system there, but it tries to become a rather strong system in the same breath, something that appears there off the coast of Vietnam, some extra energy pushing in, maybe two different systems there that try to merge into one. Scan the barcode and that will take you through to the Force 13 merch store, where you can take a look at all of our items as well as our full season and individual storm animations on request. And our still waiting for Hone t-shirts are still out there waiting to be worn. Well, in the silly range then, we continue to watch this system becomes a large and strong briefly storm, and then it weakens quite a lot as it moves back up towards the coast of China, this time east of Hong Kong. So we have one to the west and this time one to the east. Of course, still very long way out, so we can't really say whether this is going to happen at this point. And then we've also got one or two other systems that try to develop out towards the Western Pacific too. One over there, and then this system which continues possibly there into it. I'm not sure if that's tropical by that point. I think that'll be an extratropical cyclone with storm force winds along southern Japan. That's a very long way out, of course. Another one that's a long way out and very uncertain. Could we see a number 2 for the Bay of Bengal? Quite possibly. Looking at this GFS model, it's somewhat similar to what we were looking at in the early stages before Ramal formed, and it's another one that curves into West Bengal towards the west there. Very large system, tries to get its center going. It's quite difficult, doesn't last very long before it runs up against land and then moves inland over India around the 12th of June. Still a very long way out though on that one. Well, on this day, 50 years ago, it was May 29th, 1974, when we had Tropical Storm Aletta, which had formed in the Eastern Pacific and was about to make landfall on the coast of Mexico. It became a rather potent tropical storm before it did so, and made landfall later on this day, quite quickly as a matter of fact. Same name as what's coming up in the 2024 East Pacific hurricane season as well. How about that? And that was before the standardized naming lists. Tropical Depression 3B, also formed in the Indian Ocean, would become a tropical storm shortly before making landfall in West Bengal. Well, back to today then. It's code blue for Ewiniar. The first name in the Atlantic is Alberto. In the Eastern Pacific, just like 50 years ago, it's Aletta. And in the Central Pacific, the next name, just like 50 years ago, it feels like 5 years ago, it's Hone. We've been waiting 5 years for that storm now. In the Western Pacific, the next name is Maliksi. In the North Indian Ocean, it will be Asna. 19 storms so far in 2024. We are running behind schedule, but most of the storms form in the next 6 months, so wait and see. In the Australian region, the next name is Robin. The Southwest Indian Ocean, it's Jeremy. And in the South Pacific, it's Pitta. That's all from today's Tropical Weather Bulletin. We'll be back again tomorrow.
Become an Ultimate Fan today.